4-668-2510. You can also text to register. We have classes coming up here on the weekend, during the week. You could text the letters OTA to the number 41411 to reserve your seat right now. Once again, text the letters OTA to the number 41411 to reserve your seat today.
The Trader's Edge Radio Show has been brought to you by Online Trading Academy in South Florida. Online Trading Academy teaches how to trade stocks, options, futures, and Forex, and how money is made in up markets, sideways markets, and down markets, all with limited risk. Learn using our money, not yours, in real classrooms with certified instructors who currently trade and are profitable. If you want to plan a better retirement or supplement your income, learn the right way to trade and invest. Attend a free class to see how it works at Online Trading Academy in South Florida. Half-day classes meet in Broward and now our new location in Palm Beach. They're free. Call now, 561-674-9800. That's 561-674-9800. 561-674-9800.
The opinions expressed on the preceding sponsored program were strictly those of its hosts, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors.
I wanted to be in the military since I was a kid.
I served in the United States Air Force.
I served a total of 16 years.
I was deployed 13 times.
On my second deployment, 4 bombs hit my vehicle.
And at 19 years old, that's the first time I ever saw somebody die.
Coming back, I was raging.
I started having pretty horrible nightmares.
I would wake up in the middle of the night, sweats.
I started drinking a lot.
I felt worthless.
I guess I never recognized it in myself.
Eventually, one day I just walked into the VA hospital and said I'd like to see somebody.
Don't suffer alone. You gotta find that link with somebody that'll make you let it go.
It all starts with going to the VA. There's a whole community of veterans that just want to help you out.
It's for the guys who couldn't come back, so you owe it to them to live well, because they're not here with their families.
Visit maketheconnection.net.
This neighborhood sure has changed in my lifetime. You know, there was a time when people like me couldn't live here because of their race or the color of their skin. I'll never forget how I felt being told I wasn't welcome in this neighborhood, that this apartment was for whites only. That got better over time, but some people still didn't get equal treatment when it came to finding a home. Well, I own this building now. The Fair Housing Act made a difference for someone like me. It gives us the opportunity to live in communities of our choice, free from discrimination. The Fair Housing Act makes it illegal to discriminate in the renting or selling of a home because of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, familial status, or disability.
If you believe you have experienced housing discrimination, contact HUD at 1-800-669-9777 or go to www.hud.gov/fairhousing.
No child in Florida deserves to be bullied, and it's up to parents and adults to recognize the signs. I'm Andy Ford, president of the Florida Education Association. Torn clothes, bruises, loss of appetite, mood changes, or reluctance to go to school. These all could be signs that a child is the victim of bullying. And as parents, as educators, as adults, we have the power to stand up and stop the bullying, fix it, and prevent it. If you're a parent, the teacher, the custodian, the aunt, the neighbor, or the coach, one caring adult can make all the difference. Take the pledge to be that adult at NEA.org/bullyfree. Students in Florida deserve more caring adults in their lives. That's NEA.org/bullyfree.
A message from the Florida Education Association.
Christopher Kennedy Alford tells how he found the way out of drug use.
If you try to control addiction, it will beat you. It will absolutely beat you. I've had that experience myself. What happened to me was a moment of clarity, a moment of grace, a moment of profound transformation that I can only describe as God as I understand Him. And that came into my life because I had been beaten down to a point where I was open enough and surrendered enough to allow grace to come into my life. That's what happened to me. The greatest gift in my life has been the ability to surrender, to give up. Because out of that comes unbelievable understanding and unbelievable compassion and unbelievable gifts.
Those overcoming addiction can use your understanding and compassion. For more help, go to findinghopeinrecovery.com from the Mennonite Churches.
Talk 1470, WWNN Pompano Beach, Boca Raton, Miami, Fort Lauderdale. Download the iRadio Now app for iPhone or Android phones. Free at your iPhone App Store or Android App Market. Take AM 1470 WWNN with you wherever you go.
Looking to get more business in 2016? Join the Better Living Home and Garden Expo at the James L. Knight Convention Center, March 4th through the 6th. Get your business in front of thousands of consumers for a small investment. To sign up as an exhibitor, call 888-214-6607. A great way to generate leads, know your competitors, and the bottom line, increase your revenue. Call 888-214-6607. That's 888-214-6607.
The stock market dropped again. So, how much did your mutual funds and 401ks lose this time? If you're tired of losing money in down markets, learn how a lot of people are making money in down markets at Online Trading Academy. Since 1997, Online Trading Academy has given classroom lessons on the right way to trade stocks, options, futures, and Forex with limited risk. You'll learn with the school's money, not yours. Learn from pros who are certified, currently trade, and are profitable. They show you the right way to make trades every day. If you're tired of watching your money disappear in a down market, register for a free half-day class and see how banks and institutions trade stocks, options, futures, and Forex and make money in up, sideways, and down markets. Free half-day classes in Broward and Palm Beach. Call Online Trading Academy now. 561-674-9800. 561-674-9800. 561-674-9800.
This is Talk 1470. WNN.
The opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors. Are you a family caregiver? Are you caregiving for someone who can no longer take care of themselves? Are you overwhelmed? This is Caregiver Solutions Info with Marcia Teele. Marcia will be hosting an hour of true stories and information, tips and updates of the latest research and necessary information in the caregiving field, focusing on you, the family caregiver. An Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert, Marcia has 15 years of hands-on experience at Arden Courts, a leader in assisted living dementia communities here in the U.S. Marcia covers everything you need to know as a family caregiver, especially if you care for a loved one with Alzheimer's disease or other related dementia or chronic illness. If you have a friend or relative that is also a family caregiver, call them now. They won't want to miss a minute. And let them know they can watch on caregiversolutions.info. And they can listen on WNN 1470 AM in South Florida or nationally on the iHeartRadio app. Now, sit back, relax, and learn from our host, Marcia Teele, as she brings information to you that may just be the caregiving solution you need.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to CaregiverSolutions.info, Caregiver Solutions Info. Whether you are listening on your radio or watching us live stream on the internet at CaregiverSolutions.info, I'm so glad that you could join us today. We have a wonderful show, as always, every week, every Tuesday from 5 to 6. If you're a caregiver or know someone that is, or you're someone that's interested in knowing more about the Alzheimer's disease, memory loss, how to deal with it, things that caregivers need to know, then this is the right place for you. So today is Tuesday, February 2nd, 2016, and we sometimes give a little brain booster tip. And today I'd like to talk to you about a brain booster tip that everybody can do. It's very simple, something that is common in our everyday life, but sometimes we don't think about certain things. Now, you've all kind of heard that little slogan that says, you are what you eat. Well, one of the things that we can do to improve our brain function and possibly help us to prevent us from getting dementia is spice up our life. And what that means is certain foods, specifically certain spices, have been shown to help improve memory function. And so we'd like to talk just a minute about certain spices. Now, a lot of people say, well, I don't like spicy food. Well, I don't either. However, just because it's called a spice doesn't mean it has to be spicy or hot. A lot of spices are very mild. This includes some herbs, too, that are good for us. So let's talk about spicing up our life, what we can do on a daily basis to add a little flavor to our lives and maybe make our brain better. So one of the very well-known studies out there right now is turmeric, how turmeric is very good for us. That's the bright yellow spice. A lot of it is used in curry. Now, curry can be very hot and spicy, but if you use a moderate amount or just a little bit, it's not spicy at all. I love curry, but I don't like a lot of it. And so you could add to your taste whatever feels right for you. But turmeric is an anti-inflammatory and an antioxidant, and it's used in many, many ways, especially in India. They use a lot of curry, and studies have been done that a lot of people from India are slowing down the progress of Alzheimer's disease or basically improving their cognition because they eat a lot of turmeric there. So a lot of these spices and the studies that we'll be talking about have been either published in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease and other studies. The research has been done on this. As you know, we're trying very desperately, all the researchers and a lot of private companies, to try to get a handle on what causes Alzheimer's, because, we don't know what actually causes it. But one of the things that they're linking to Alzheimer's disease is inflammation of the brain, of the arteries in the brain. A lot of inflammation, of course, that's bad for you anywhere in your body, but perhaps it's linked to Alzheimer's. So a lot of these spices can help reduce inflammation. Now, another one that is very, very good is cinnamon. Now, who doesn't love cinnamon? Cinnamon rolls, and you can put a little cinnamon in your coffee, a little cinnamon in your yogurt, your cereal. Cinnamon is very, very good. It has properties also that prevent anti-tau buildup. Now, tau is in the brain, and they're linking tau and plaque buildup in the brain to Alzheimer's disease. So we want to reduce that tau. It's an antioxidant to fight those free radicals, and that's what damages our brain cells. It also has been shown to reduce the amyloid protein, and the amyloid protein is something that's found in those plaques, and of course those plaques and tangles in the brain are basically killing the cells, and that causes the memory loss. So cinnamon is very, very good. You can use it many, many ways. It's not going to hurt, and it tastes good. So try that. Also, two herbs that maybe you haven't thought about before: rosemary and sage. I know there's a song that is linked to those two specific herbs, and the properties of rosemary and sage is known to improve memory and lower the risk of Alzheimer's. So those are some simple things that you can do to boost your brain and make you feel better and improve the flavor of your food. So that being said, I have a question for you. If you're a caregiver, whether you're a spouse or whether you might be an adult child caring for a parent who has dementia, any kind of memory loss. As we know, Alzheimer's is the most prevalent form of dementia. Lots of different things can cause memory loss, but Alzheimer's disease is the most prevalent kind. So we talk about Alzheimer's disease, but it doesn't have to be that type of dementia. Doesn't matter what you're dealing with, it's still memory loss. And if you're a caregiver and you're frustrated because you're saying the same thing over and over and over again, and you're frustrated, you're worn out, you feel like you're going crazy, maybe your loved one isn't saying something that's right or correct, and you're trying to explain to them and they just don't get it, and you're pulling your hair out, well, this show is for you. We're going to be talking to an expert on communication behaviors, and we're going to be discussing some of these things that people with dementia do because of the disease, and some of the ways that caregivers can help communicate with them, help them communicate better, and also help them to understand better what you want to say. So that's going to be an awesome show that we have for you today. So I promise you, you don't want to miss it. So we're going to take our first commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about that. So stay with us.
Arden Courts is not just a place to live, it's a place to call home. Residential living combined with quality caregiving. This is the philosophy behind Arden Courts. Communities created exclusively for individuals with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia who would benefit from a safe and structured environment. For additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides, call 888-478-2410 to locate a community nearest you. Inquire about our educational seminars, resource library, or support groups, or simply feel free to ask questions you may have about Alzheimer's and related dementias. At Arden Courts, we know, we understand, and we can help because memory care is all we do. Remember, call 888-478-2410 for additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides. Make First Choice your first choice for home health care. First Choice is state certified for Medicare covered services such as medical treatment and rehabilitation. Qualified healthcare professionals come to your home and work closely with your doctor to build a care plan designed to get you back on your feet as soon as possible. Founded and operated by registered nurses, First Choice Home Health is dedicated to providing exceptional home health care. Their highly skilled medical professionals have the knowledge and ability to provide patients quality care. Call First Choice Home Health at 561-296-2770. That's 561-296-2770. And tell them you want them as your first choice. You are listening to your host, Marcia Teele, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on CareGiverSolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
And welcome back. So today we're going to be talking about behaviors that people with dementia have because their brain can't remember. And it causes a lot of caregivers much frustration and agony. And so we're going to be helpful to you today. Hopefully you'll learn something, take away a tip or two. And to help us to discuss this, we have with us today Samara Schneider. Hi, Samara.
Hi.
Samara is with Alzheimer's Community Care, and she is the supervisor of specialized day services at Alzheimer's Community Care in West Palm Beach. And Samara, I know that you have worked in the field of healthcare most of that time with dementia for about 7 years. And although you look very young, I know you have a much wealth of information and experience working with people with memory loss. And so you're going to be so helpful to our audience today, and I'm so excited to have you with us.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Great. So we're going to be talking about communication techniques. Now, it's different when you're communicating with a person with memory loss when they have memory loss in the early stages, as opposed to a middle stage and a late stage. So we're going to break it down a little bit for our audience, talk a little bit about each stage, some of the behaviors that can affect communication, and then talk about how we can help and how a caregiver can maybe interact a little bit better to make it a little more stress-free for them.
Definitely.
Because you know caregivers are stressed out.
Right.
You see that all the time.
All the time.
All right. So in a daycare setting, at any given time, what's the max that you've probably had at one time of clients that have Alzheimer's in one of your day centers?
The max I would say is about 30 patients at a day center.
Okay. So every day, 30 or so patients that have memory loss, you're interacting with them and your staff, and you have help, of course, with your staff, but you're overseeing all of this. And so obviously there's going to be some issues. And I know that the caregivers tell you about things that happen at home. And how do I do this? And why is this happening? And how do I handle that? So we're going to share, and we're going to talk about those things. So in the early stage, which is mildly impaired, and we, there's a lot of different ways that people kind of decide what stage somebody's in. But in general, we're going to do early, middle, and moderate. And a lot of the symptoms and behaviors, they cross over, and it's just not a clear, cut, and dry boundary. So, you just kind of have to take it with your own situation and see which one you feel that your loved one fits into. But in the early stage of Alzheimer's disease, one of the first signs is that someone can't remember a word. It's on the tip of my tongue, right? And they can't find that word they need. So they're trying to tell you, I need that, and all of a sudden they can't think of it, right? So if they were trying to say pencil, it might come out like what?
It could start with a P. It could it could really be anything, because they might say it might be pencil, but they're thinking any word really, honestly, could come out. And you're kind of,
like tomato.
It could come out as anything, correct?
Right.
So you want to try to guide them as far as, okay, are you hungry? Are you thirsty? Do you want me to get you that over there? You want to point to it, maybe bring it to them.
So if you think they're trying to say, I need that, and they can't think of it, try to guide them. So maybe look at the situation and what you're doing at the time, and maybe help them figure out what it is.
Right, because if they have a piece of paper in front of them, and they're like, I need that, and, it could be 100 things, but they know what they need. So then you think, okay, is it a marker? Is it a colored pencil? Is it... Okay, and then you start naming things, and then eventually they say, yes, that's it.
Scissors, yes, I want the scissors, right? Or that cutting thing.
Right.
They say that cutting
they'll
thing.
describe it.
Right,
Correct.
so if they don't know what something is called, they might explain what it's used for, and that's going to be helpful. So if someone can't remember it, maybe one of the things that a caregiver could do is say, well, what does it do? What do you need it for? What does that
explaining it back to them also helps them trigger something else. So by explaining, what is this? It cuts. It does that. Oh yeah, that's it. That's what I'm talking about.
Right. Do you need to cut something? No. Do you need to write something?
Right.
So help them kind of figure it out.
Guide them.
Right. They're not going to be able to do it on their own. So one of the worst things I think that caregivers do, like what, and they sort of quiz them in a way that makes them feel that they're being attacked.
Right.
And then they're just going to get upset.
Of course. Right. And so sometimes I understand about the caregivers, but you gotta take a step back and breathe and say, give them choices. Is it this? Is it that? And limit it to 2 choices, because going over 2, honestly, it's going to confuse them more. And sometimes showing them, okay, do you want the lemonade or do you want the orange juice? You sometimes have to show them.
Right. And then they let them point to which one that they want. And you're right. Giving them too many choices is overwhelming to them.
Right.
Same thing goes with choosing clothes.
Yes. Picking out. A lot of times, I know if a patient has a favorite outfit, or a resident or your loved one has a favorite outfit, buy 2 of it, buy a matching colored pant to it, because, they sell the same pant color and the same shirt color. So line it up for them and make their choices limited. What they like to wear. So keep it limited.
Right. And one of the things that we say at Arden Court's memory care community is that we're a fail-free environment. So you too can help make your loved one feel like they're not going to fail if you limit their choices, because no answer is going to be wrong.
Right.
If you say you want the blue shirt or the brown shirt, either one will go, you know?
And even with picking out, I know sometimes the caregivers have an issue of getting their loved one out of pajamas, and
Or into them.
So you sometimes have to let them wear the pajamas out. I mean, some pajamas look like street clothes, so you gotta take a step back and realize if it's pajamas, it's pajamas. It's happened at the day centers before, and no one's judging them there.
So they've actually arrived that morning in their pajamas.
Multiple times.
And you know what? That caregiver who just said, you know what? I'm not going to force you, because I can't force you to change your clothes.
Right.
I don't want to make your day start out bad. I don't want it to make my day start out bad.
Right.
So what difference does it make if you wear the pajamas, right? And certainly in a daycare setting that caters to dementia, they're not going to judge.
Where you don't judge.
They understand where you're coming from, and it's perfectly okay.
Yes.
And getting into the pajamas is another story, but since we're on the subject of PJs, let's just talk about that. I know that a lot of caregivers say, he won't take his clothes off so I can get him into his pajamas. And that seems to be a real sticking point with a lot of caregivers, that you have to take off your street clothes, and in order to go to sleep, you must wear this other set of clothes. And it reminds me of when my children were little. And let's say we went on an outing, and we're getting home late at night, and they fall asleep in their clothes in the car seat, and they're a sleeping baby, and you take them out of the car and you carry them, and you're gently going to put them in the crib or into their bed. Now, are you going to wake up that sleeping baby to say, you got to get out of these other clothes and put on your jammies so you can try to go back to sleep? No, you're not going to do that. You know what? What does it hurt to let somebody sleep in their clothes? Really? I mean, unless they're wet, or something like that, or soiled, because if someone's incontinent, obviously you want to change that, because that can cause other issues. But it doesn't hurt to let them sleep in their PJs or their street clothes, vice versa, whichever way it works better.
I've actually also used a technique to say, hey, there's something on the back of your shirt. You can't see it. I can see it. But let me take it for you. I'm going to take it to the dry cleaners, and I'll have it fixed. And you'd be surprised how many times they're like, oh, really? Okay. If it's like a jacket that has, maybe something on the back of it, and they're not willing to give it up. And I'll say, listen, I'll give you my jacket. You keep it for the day, and I'll get it back whenever. Because they need that exchange, too, of something.
Yeah. Well, I think it's very, very important. So I love that. Okay, here's a classic. I want to go home. Now, we hear that all the time, and I'm sure you at home hear that from your loved one. I want to go home. Although they are living in their home that they currently live at with you or the caregiver, but yet they're still saying, I want to go home. When they go into a daycare setting, I want to go home. When they go into an assisted living community, I want to go home, right? And even when they're home, they want to go home. So this is very common.
Very common.
And you must see it all the time.
I do. And especially for someone new coming to the center. But you always want to talk to the patient. You want to get to know about them. And even if they're telling you at home, I want to go home, say, where is home? Start asking them questions about home. Where is home? Is it here? Is it in Florida? Is it in New York? Is it in a different state? Who lives in your home? And then by the time you're having this conversation, they can't remember what you were, what home, why
they don't remember that
home.
They said they wanted to go
home.
Because you've involved them into a conversation.
Right.
And I always say, too, that home doesn't necessarily mean where they currently live.
Correct.
Sometimes home is where they lived when they grew up with their parents, and they're living in the past, and they want to go home to their parents who are long gone now.
Right.
And that's because they're thinking about home as a place of comfort.
Right.
And I think that sometimes when they say, I want to go home, home doesn't even necessarily mean a physical place. I think sometimes, they say home is where the heart is.
Right.
And I think sometimes, they want to go home because they're remembering a safe harbor, a place where they feel comfortable, where they feel loved. So maybe if your loved one is saying, I want to go home, maybe it really means I need a hug. I need to feel comfortable. I'm not feeling safe. I'm not feeling loved. So whatever you could do to comfort them and make them feel comfortable might even eliminate the I want to go home.
Right. And another technique I've also used at the day center is when after they say I want to go home, I say, well, before you go home, can you help me with something? And then that kind of gears them into, an activity or something else, to help me with. And because they enjoy helping out and it gives them purpose.
And because they want to help you, it distracts them from saying, I want to go home, and okay, I'll help you. And then they forget all about it because of the short-term memory loss.
Exactly.
And that's a wonderful way to distract somebody is say, okay, all right, you're not going to argue with them. You're not going to say, no,
okay.
you are home. This is where we've lived for 20 years. You are home.
Yeah,
and
don't
that's just,
say that.
Don't say that.
Stay far away.
And you have to get into their world. Unfortunately, it's really hard for caregivers, especially, well, I wouldn't say especially, I say both for adult children and for spouses. It's different for each one, obviously. But I've always explained to spouses that have been married for many, many years. And I, talk to families and we talk about their life before Alzheimer's. And now that Alzheimer's has, changed their life, it's hard for the well spouse to understand what's happening. And all these years, they've been married 50, 60 years. And I always say it's like a little dance. And you had a dance step. And you both knew the steps to the dance. However, when Alzheimer's disease enters the picture, it changes the dance step for the person with dementia. But you don't know what the steps are. Yeah. So now they have a different dance. You're not sure what the dance steps are. And all of a sudden you're stepping on each other's toes. Right. So think about, having a new dance partner and you go, and you're trying to do a tango and you have no clue how to do it. And you're going to be fumbling and you're stepping on each other's toes and it's going to hurt. And someone's going to get mad at you and it's like, ouch. And what did you do that for? And that's not how you do it. And, it causes friction, right? So that's how I use as an analogy that it's dance. So now, because the person with Alzheimer's is not going to go back to the old dance, all right? They can't remember the old dance. Unfortunately, the caregiver now has to learn the new dance steps. And that's what we're here for. We're here to help teach you those new steps.
Right, yeah. And, it's hard to give advice to a spouse that's been married, or educate, I should say, a spouse that's been married for 50, 60 years. And, the wife says, I asked him to hand me my wallet and he's looking through my purse and he can't find it. And I said, they're at the point where they can't take direction. And but you got to educate and you got to take a step back, like I said, and, they can't take direction.
Right. What about somebody in the early stages? We see this a lot at home, where people, or maybe even in a regular assisted living, sometimes a person has lost their spouse and they go and they move into a regular assisted living. They're getting older and they don't want to be alone, and so they go and enter a community where they can have friends and have activities. So let's say they're in a regular assisted living, not one that's geared to dementia care, and all of a sudden that person starts withdrawing, and maybe they're not entering into activities as much, or maybe they're not speaking as much. And that's a telltale sign there that that person is probably aware of the fact that they have memory loss, and they stop speaking as much because they don't want to say things that might embarrass them in their peer group. And so if you're at home and you see someone or there's your spouse is starting to speak less, could be the same thing, that they don't want to say something wrong, because there is a point in the disease where they do realize that they're not right, and they might even say, I'm not right in the head,
I've
or
heard that
something's
before.
wrong with me.
Yeah, they say or sometimes they will say, I have a disease and I'm losing my memory.
What's wrong with me?
What's wrong with me? I knew about, it was there and now it's not. I can feel it leaving. And, but again, you want to listen. The biggest thing is listening and giving them cues and coaching them into words. And the thing with the pointing and, it could be short sentences, because when you talk and it's confusing.
Yes, and to my point, which is next, you must have been a mind reader, about giving directions. And let's just for a minute talk about giving directions. When this Alzheimer's sets in, it takes so much away from a person. They can't process as well as they used to. They don't have the brain power, and the cells are dying, and they can't process things. And it's amazing that you'll have brilliant people, engineers and scientists and professors and doctors, and they still get Alzheimer's. And they once were so quick about being able to process and do their work, and now it's frustrating to them and it's slower. So when you're trying to give a direction to someone, you want to break it down into very short, simple sentences and not string too many directives together.
Right. And it's interesting you say that, because I did have an activity coordinator who said one time was setting up the table to paint, and she only gave them red. And she said, I switch the colors after we're done because it's step by step. Because think about it, you put a palette of colors out, who knows which one to, but what do I do with the paintbrush? So she says, pick up the paintbrush, and you have to go step by step. You have to be patient. It's not like grab this, take that, bring this down. It's one at a time.
Right. So it's not go in the bathroom, brush your teeth.
Right.
Bring
me the perfume that I need to put on.
Right.
Take off the door.
Take off your T-shirt, put it in the hamper, put on your pajamas, and get your slippers, and then come back out to the family room and we'll watch a movie. And by the time you say that, they have no clue where to start. And they're like, they've already lost the first thought, and you've already given them at least 5 or 6 things.
Right.
So, like you said, break it down. One thing at a time. That's what you got to do. So, we'll be right back after a short commercial break. Stay tuned. This is good stuff.
Do you need the advice of an elder law attorney, but perhaps find it difficult or overwhelming getting to appointments? The solution is the Elder Law Department. They bring elder law to you by meeting with you in the comfort of your own surroundings to discuss your personal situation and family needs. In practice since 1994, Heidi Friedman is a member of the Elder Law section of the Florida Bar. She and her team help families with issues that include incapacity and estate planning, asset preservation, veterans benefits, and other legal issues that seniors may face. Call the Elder Law Department at 954-383-1143. 954-383-1143. They bring elder law to you. Make First Choice your first choice for home health care. First Choice is state certified for Medicare covered services such as medical treatment and rehabilitation. Qualified healthcare professionals come to your home and work closely with your doctor to build a care plan designed to get you back on your feet as soon as possible. Founded and operated by registered nurses, First Choice Home Health is dedicated to providing exceptional home health care. Their highly skilled medical professionals have the knowledge and ability to provide patients quality care. Call First Choice Home Health at 561-296-2770. That's 561-296-2770. And tell them you want them as your first choice. You are listening to your host, Marcia Teele, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on CareGiverSolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
Welcome back to Caregiver Solutions. I'd like to thank our national sponsor, Arden Court's Memory Care Community, for helping to make this program possible. And one of the things that Arden Courts does as a memory care community is they specialize in Alzheimer's and other related dementia. That's all they do. not only do they take care of people with memory loss, they also take care of the caregivers in many different ways. And one way that they do that is providing educational opportunities and resources. And so the 36-hour day book, which is a wonderful resource for caregivers to learn all about dementia and caregiving from A to Z, is made available to you for free by Arden Courts. And all you have to do is call them on their toll-free number, 888-478-2410. Tell them that you heard about this offer on Caregiver Solutions Info Show, and they'll be happy to mail to you right away your copy for free of the 36-hour day. Now, a couple weeks ago, we had information on the Florida Silver Alert Program, and this is the guide that we talked about. This is the Family Risk Guide, and it's through the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. Alzheimer's Community Care is a significant resource for this guide, and they've helped make this available. If you'd also like to have a family risk guide, you're wondering about what happens if your loved one gets out of the house and wanders away, what you should do, this is something that you need to have in your hands and read about. And again, if you call Arden Courts, their toll-free number, and tell them you like the family risk guide for wandering, this is called the Lost on Foot Risk Guide. Again, 888-478-2410, and you can get that also. So, thank you, Samara, for being here today. We have Samara Schneider. She is a specialized supervisor of specialized daycare services at Alzheimer's Community Care, and we've been talking about how to communicate better with your loved one to make your day less stressful and make their day more enjoyable too.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Well, this is great. We talked about the early stage and some of the behaviors that happen in the early stage dementia. Let's move on to middle stage and talk about a few things about that. One of the things in middle stage, which is moderately impaired with cognitive functioning, with someone that is been diagnosed with Alzheimer's or some other dementia, is that sometimes people think that they can't hear. And just because they can't process, people try to repeat loudly, loud and almost screaming at them, you know, pick up your shoe, and they don't respond, and it gets louder. Pick up your shoe, and it gets louder. Pick up your shoe, and it's not going to make them pick up their shoe just by doing it louder. So people with Alzheimer's don't necessarily have hearing loss, although some do, and you need to get that checked. But the problem is, even though they can hear the words, they hear what you're saying, pick up your shoe, it's not processing. And so what do you say about that?
So typically, sometimes you want to show them and pick up the shoe, and sometimes they might be looking at you and not down. So sometimes you need to point down, you know, your shoe, pick it up, and you kind of have to go through the motions of it because saying it isn't registering.
Right. They hear the words, but they can't process what those words mean. And so you got to help them out with that.
Right.
They
just guide them.
It'd be, you know what? It'd be like if you didn't speak Spanish and I said, hablo español un poquito, señorita. Now, you heard what I said, but you might not have a clue what I said, right? So I think it's a little bit like that. It's like you're speaking a different language to them, whether it's Greek or Italian or anything else other than their native language.
And sometimes you have to you have to put yourself in that, and they're thinking of a different you have to think of them speaking a different language, and you're speaking a different language, and you have to show them exactly what you're talking about to get through.
Right. So picture yourself going to Turkey or Italy or some other country where you have no clue of the language, and the natives of that land are talking to you, and they're asking you a question or trying to tell you something. You would be lost too.
Right.
And you're like, what? And again, hand motions, showing something, you know, trying to explain that. So it works for us as well as for people with memory loss.
Right, exactly.
It's the same thing. Sometimes a person can't form full sentences. Now let's talk about that in the middle stages. So let's say maybe an example of that would be, you know, I have to go and do the, and then they stop.
Right.
And they're trying to say something, and it's not that they're looking for a particular word. They've lost the whole thought. Now, let's talk about that.
And again, you want to coach them on words. You know, is it were you going to the store? No. Were you going home? No, I wasn't going anywhere. And then you kind of have to pull different words to clue them on what they were going to say, because they might start a sentence or a phrase, and you're trying to help them, but it's really not going anywhere. But again, trying to give as many clues as possible
and
helps.
try to be patient.
And that's really
hard.
Raising your voice,
right,
as well, because raising your voice is it's scary. It scares them,
right? And they're going to mirror you. Whatever you put out, you're going to get back.
Right.
So if you're calm and you know, on a lighter note, they're going to be the same way. If you're getting frustrated, they're going to read that and they're going to get frustrated. And then if you get angry, they're really going to read that and they're going to get angry back. And then before you know it, it's escalating.
Exactly. And you really, again, like you said, you want to speak slowly and patiently and listen and give them clues onto what they need, what you're asking for. And it goes a long way being patient,
it really,
as we know.
It really does. Not easy to do.
It's not, no?
Yeah,
No,
that's why we always
it's
say
not.
take care of yourself and,
Right.
you know, get what you need. It's a working process. A lot of times I'll hear someone say, well, there's nothing wrong with my dad's memory. He reads the newspaper every day, and he reads a book, and he's been reading books. All right. Now, we want to talk a little bit about that, because even though someone's reading and they have the newspaper in front of them, and they might have a book in front of them for hours, they don't necessarily comprehend what they're reading.
You give them the newspaper and they're flipping through it, and I might ask them, oh, what story did you read? Oh, I'm just looking. So they're not, they think that they're reading, but they're really just, they're doing motions. They're just going through the book.
Because that's what they used to do.
That's what they used to do,
Right.
and they revert back to what they used to do.
Right. And even if they can read out loud, because they can still read words, they're not keeping the context or the meaning of the words long enough in their brain to remember,
absorb what was actually stated in an article.
Right, the
Exactly.
article or the chapter. So by the time they read a chapter of a book, or even probably the first couple of pages, they can't tell you how it started.
Right.
So even if they're reading out loud and they can still read and form those words, they can't remember to tell you what's happened up to that point.
And it's the same thing with movies or a TV show, and you're watching maybe together, and you say, oh, what just happened? And they might say, oh, I'm just watching. You know, it's the motions. They're just watching what's on TV, but they're not absorbing the storyline.
Right. So what a caregiver could do in that case, instead of giving them a magazine that is mostly words,
Right.
let's give them a magazine with pictures.
Exactly.
And then they can look at the pictures. Their brain can interpret those pictures. Pictures are nice to look at. Everybody likes pictures. And then the caregiver can look at the pictures with them and talk about what they see. So you don't have to talk about what they can't remember.
Right.
Okay, we don't want to do something that they can't remember.
Exactly.
So we want to focus on what they can do, not what they can't do.
Exactly. And you really want to, and if you want to make it even more of an activity, you can say, cut me out all of the food items in there. And you could have a little sign. We do this at the centers. You know, it says, cut me out all the food items. It's one thing. So what are they doing? They're active. They're flipping through and cutting out. Or cut me all the pictures out of the women. So they flip through again, and it's one task. It's an activity. It turns into an activity.
Right. And that's very good, because they need to have activities that they can feel successful at. And when you give them something specific like that and they do it, you know, they're proud and they've helped you, and it really makes their day better.
Exactly.
Sometimes they speak about the past, and sometimes they don't always remember correctly the details of the past. And so I know a lot of caregivers will say, no, that's not right. That's not what happened. Don't you remember we went to this lake, not that one, and it wasn't 1942,
Yeah,
it was 1945, and it wasn't a rainy day, it was a sunny day. I mean,
Again.
it goes on and on and on. And so they're trying to correct the person.
You have to learn when you're working with your loved one that has Alzheimer's that you need to go with the flow.
There you go.
And you're in their reality. So if you are caring for them and your name is not Betty, but they're calling you Betty, like they call me different names, I go with the flow.
They call me Blondie, and that's okay with me.
They call me the little girl.
Okay.
And you just really have to go with what they're saying because they know you're someone important, and it could be maybe it was your sister's name or a relative. It could be a relative's name. They know you're someone important. I see it a lot with the sisters, the daughters of the child of the patient. They think it's their sister, but it's really their daughter, and they know it's that close connection in the family. But don't correct them.
Right.
It'll drive you nuts.
Right. And it'll make them upset
It'll
too.
make them
and
upset that they can't remember who their daughter is.
Right, and they can feel bad. So
Don't make
one
them
way
feel
that you
bad.
can do something about that, instead of, this is one of my pet peeves, Mom, what's my name? Or what's my name? Don't even say Mom. It's like, what's my name? You know my name.
Yeah.
I've known you for 40 years. You know my name. And they're quizzing them and they're putting them on the spot. So instead of doing that, it's much nicer to say, hi, I'm Sylvia. I've been your friend for 40 years and we grew up together in New York. Now, what have you done? You've had a nice, pleasant introduction. You said who you are, your name, the connection you have with that person, and it's so much more enjoyable than to say, "What's my name? You know, I've known you for 40 years, and where did we go? How do you know me? Don't you remember that we grew up together?" You see the difference in the tone and the whole conversation. The way you started out is going to be completely different of how you start that conversation.
Right. And going along with that, you also don't want to bring up someone who's passed away. You know, I find a lot of times, you know, the family members are like, "Oh, your husband passed away years ago." It brings them back to that time. If they ask, he's around.
He went to work.
Yeah, he went to work. I'm sure he's around spiritually. I'm sure he's around.
People have a thing about, well, I'm not going to lie, you know, to my mom. And if you say it in a certain way, you're not technically lying, but you're not going to create a new grieving process every single time. And you think about it, they forgot their husband died a few years ago. They forgot. They think he's still around somewhere. Where is he? Well, Mom, Daddy died a few years ago. He died? You didn't tell me. You didn't tell me he died.
Right. So now they're upset because you didn't tell them.
Why didn't you tell me? And how come? And what am I going to do? And they get very upset
and agitated and frustrated, and it brings them back. And then now you're dealing with more problems.
Now they're crying.
Now they're upset. Very upset.
And now they're crying because they're grieving. And every single time, like you said, you say that, they're going to go through this grieving process over and over again. So why not just eliminate that altogether and say, where's Daddy? Oh, he's around. He had to go somewhere, but he'd be back, you know. And well, maybe, you know, in another life. I don't know. But you know, and if you don't have a problem with giving that, stretching the truth a little bit, you know, the little fib. Some people call it a therapeutic fib.
Right, it is.
If you
I agree with
don't
that.
feel bad about that, and you know, want to make them have a nice day, you can say, well, he had to go to work. You know, he had to go do the work, and when he's done, you know, he'll come back. And then by that time, they've forgotten about it, and you move on. Very simple, yeah. So we're going to take our last commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about the late stages. So stay with us.
Do you need the advice of an elder law attorney, but perhaps find it difficult or overwhelming getting to appointments? The solution is the Elder Law Department. They bring elder law to you by meeting with you in the comfort of your own surroundings to discuss your personal situation and family needs. In practice since 1994, Heidi Friedman is a member of the Elder Law section of the Florida Bar. She and her team help families with issues that include incapacity and estate planning, asset preservation, veterans benefits, and other legal issues that seniors may face. Call the Elder Law Department at 954-383-1143. 954-383-1143. They bring elder law to you. Arden Courts is not just a place to live. It's a place to call home. Residential living combined with quality caregiving. This is the philosophy behind Arden Courts. Communities created exclusively for individuals with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia who would benefit from a safe and structured environment. For additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides, call 888-478-2410 to locate a community nearest you. Inquire about our educational seminars, resource library, or support groups, or simply feel free to ask questions you may have about Alzheimer's and related dementias. At Arden Courts, we know, we understand, and we can help because memory care is all we do. Remember, call 888-478-2410 for additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides. You are listening to your host, Marcia Teele, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on CareGiverSolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
And we're back talking about how you as a caregiver can communicate more effectively with your loved one that has dementia, make your day a little less stressful, and make them feel a little bit better. So we've talked about early stage, middle stage, and here I'm with Samara Schneider from Alzheimer's Community Care. And let's talk a little bit about the late stages. This is where people really lose their ability to get the words out, and sometimes they come out all jumbled up. There's a phrase for it called word salad, meaning that nothing makes sense, although in the person's head, in the person with dementia in their head, they think they know what they're saying. I mean, the what's in their head is not coming out the right way from their mouth, so the words are all jumbled up. So they might say something like, "My Baba is in the so we then and then Baba but go," right? And they're telling you something. Now, that is later stage where the words are all mixed up. The person's trying to communicate with you. They think they know what they're saying, but you have no clue, right? Now, how are we going to handle this?
So the first thing you don't want to do is tilt your head and say, "What are you talking about?"
Exactly.
Stay away from that.
Right.
You want to go again with the flow. "Oh, okay, I understand. Show me, tell me, keep going." Maybe you have to. Sometimes we show them pictures, actually.
Yes.
And they might be at the point where they're really frustrated, and sometimes the sense of touch goes a long way, and it's calming for them. So if it's a person that is okay with being touched, you just put your hand on their shoulder and say, "Okay, keep telling me." Maybe they just want to get something out.
Right. And sometimes, especially a lot of men that are living in the past talking about their work, and they're fixated on their job that they had for many years, and they have a problem at work and they have to fix it, and they're very into it and they're telling you about it, and maybe they're upset somebody did something. And again, the best thing to do is listen and say, "Really, tell me more." Well, what happened next?
Right. I can't believe that happened.
Right. And oh my gosh, well, what did you do about that? And they're going to answer you, and they're going to be happy that they have an audience to listen to them. And by listening to them and giving them the time and acting like you do understand, even though you don't. By doing that, you're showing that you care and that you're there for them. And that's really all they want.
It's true. They just needed someone to release that information, just like we all do on a daily basis.
They might be venting.
They're venting in their own way. But to stop and say, I don't know what you're talking about. These words don't make sense. Just get it out already. That's not the way you want to go.
And you'll be surprised if you slow down, give them the time to get whatever's on their mind out, even though it makes not one iota of sense to you. I think you'll find as a caregiver that they'll be more helpful or more apt to follow your directions or to do what you need them to do once they have a chance to communicate what they feel they need to communicate.
Right.
And it works both ways.
It does. And even if you with what they're saying, you can pick one word out of it and go with that.
Right.
It also, if they're talking about a problem at, your situation at work, if you could pick one word out of that and just go with it, and they're shaking their head as well, and so are you, and it's sometimes nonverbal, it's just shaking your head and moving your hands.
Right. And I had the exact same situation at Arden Courts where the gentleman was upset about something that probably happened 30, 40 years ago. And that was the conversation that we had. Tell me more. Well, how did you handle that? Oh, that's great. You got that fixed? Oh, that's wonderful. You must have been so proud.
Right.
You know?
And with that being said, you sometimes have people who are speaking a lot and it doesn't make sense, but you also have people who just start to cry and they can't express what they're going to say, what they are saying. So again, it's comforting them. We don't know what they're upset about, but it's comforting them.
Right. A little baby, when they cry, you don't know necessarily why they're crying. I mean, they could be hungry, they could be wet, they just could be lonely. It's similar because you don't know exactly what is causing them to cry. So you want to check for all those things. You want to offer a snack or something to drink because they're upset that they're not getting what they need. And it could be a physical thing like food or water, or it could be, like you said, it might just be holding their hand. And that physical touch is amazing.
Sitting them down, maybe you're standing up, come sit down and talk to me, let me hear what's going, and patting their back.
Right. And put on some soft music and just have a time together and say, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. And it's amazing, these are things that, we've all learned being in this industry, helping people with Alzheimer's and their caregivers for many years. For me, it's 15 years, and I love it as much as you do. I'm very passionate about it. But you learn all of these things because it's not something that comes automatic. And that's the hard part. It's not automatic. So caregivers, hopefully you've learned a few tips from Samara Schneider. She's the supervisor of specialized daycare services at Alzheimer's Community Care. If someone wants to learn more about your day centers or talk to you or ask you some questions, could they contact you?
Of course. They can call me. My phone number is 561-683-2700. And they can also visit us on our website at alzcare.org.
That's alzcare.org. And when you go to that, don't forget to check out the 2016 Alzheimer's Educational Conference that's coming up March 17th and 18th. You can find out all the information on that website. It's an awesome opportunity for caregivers to come and learn, and it's very, very affordable. So we'll be announcing this quite frequently until it comes up. I'm actually going to be speaking at the conference again this year. I'm so proud about that. We want to also remind you to call Arden Courts on their toll-free number to get your free 36-hour day book or to get the family risk guide for Lost on Foot. We want to remind everybody that we'll be back next Tuesday, same time, same place. We also have lots and lots of resources for you out there. There's so much that we can provide, questions that we can answer, and we want to be there for you. And so I want to encourage anybody that has a specific question to look us up, give us a call, send us an email. And until we see you next week, don't forget, give someone a hug. We'll see you later. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us for this week's Caregiver Solutions with Marcia Teele. Join us next week as Marcia, who has 15 years of Alzheimer's disease and dementia care experience, brings you more needed information to help with the care of your loved one. This show can be seen again on caregiversolutions.info, and questions can be left on the site, which may be used on the program to help others. See you next week for more Caregiver Solutions. The opinions expressed